As usual, our format implies two guests. Eric Loth is a veteran of the watch industry. He's been in the watch business for several decades now. And afterwards, we're going to have a colleague of mine, Eleanor Picciotto. So let me see if he's around. Okay, so let me add him. Okay, so yet another session. There he is.
Sorry for the delay.
It's okay. Great,
I
great to see you.
was a little bit confused, you know.
No, it's okay. It's great to have you. Great to have
Great.
you. And I'm going to put a picture on this picture here. Okay, look at this. In tribute to your timepieces, I'm joining. I'm adding this picture that I took a few months ago at a very beautiful place in the south of Lisbon. We sent you a few pictures regarding that session we did for Espiral do Tempo. So welcome, Eric. Of course, I had to have you. I've known you for a long time now, over 20 years when you launched Graham, but you've been in the watch industry for longer than that. So you're a veteran of the watch industry. You work for the Swatch Group. So please, I would love you to start by introducing yourself and your experience in the watch world.
Thank you anyway for inviting me. That's very nice for me to have this chance to share, let's say, with all your followers, my life and also the life of Graham. So then, my story is very simple because I was not really meant for being a watchmaker. I was not meant to be at once a brand owner. So I was starting my life as an engineer, as a physical metallurgist. So then I was very far away from let's say the business, living in the place of Le Locle and La Chaux-de-Fonds during my youth. So then I knew about it, of course, and then being let's say hired by Swatch Group at the time, when it was not the name of the Swatch Group, actually it was Azwag at that time in 1980. I got started at Rado as an engineer in the design department. It was September 1st, 1980. Exactly. I remember this day. I think one of the very nice days of my life, actually.
Yeah.
And then since then, I progressed my time at Swatch, left the very difficult times and also the good times. I mean, we've got very nice times as well. So then I went through the structure and made a lot of experience, I have to say. And well, at the end, what I learned is that I was not meant to end up as a managing director of anything. I was not really the kind of person that can obey for life. And I decided a little bit later, it was in '94 actually, to start up my own things. And then being a consultant, helping some other brands, with all my experience to progress. So then I was contributing to some famous brands as a consultant, as an engineer. But then at the same time, I mean, we got started with a few friends of that time, what we can call today Graham. So he had another shape at that time. We have got many brands, but then we focus progressively more and more on the brand Graham, which for me is probably the most attractive and the most what can I say? The most exciting brand, actually, is the brand I love. And since these days, so then we got started officially about 25 years ago, exactly. I think it was in March. So we are just now talking 25 years later than the day I signed up with the notary, the creation of our company that still exists today.
Yeah.
I'm proudly owning, together with my friend William Asprey from London. So that is still a Swiss and partly also English-owned company.
Yeah. So it was a time where watchmaking was coming back strong after the crisis in the late '90s, early 2000s, and you embodied a little bit that revival. And of course, the first greatest watchmakers were French and also English before the Swiss came in. And tell us, who was George Graham that gives name to your company? The great George Graham.
George Graham is actually the root. Is the man that was, let's say, more an engineer than just a watchmaker. He was a scientist, and this is where I feel very close to him, as modestly said, you know, as a person, because this man was curious. He was never satisfied. He was watching about the, you know, his relation with Isaac Newton at that time. You know, interested in the moon movement around the Earth. Interested about the gravitation theories, interested about art as well, about theater, interested about the beauty of things, about the nature. So he was a man that was so rich as a person that it can only be considered as a model. You know, this person was a real model, and I must say modestly, I hope I reach more or less 1 or 2% of what this man was able to provide at this time, you know. And the thing is that this kind of curiosity I had already became something connecting myself to this root. But of course, Graham of today is not a revival of the George Graham's brand, because we had to experience, you know, a disruption of the production of Graham, what his name Graham thinks, for more than 150 years. So then when we revived this company, we just took this as a root, because I believe personally that would have been, you know, the thing that would have motivated me during the good days, but also during the bad days, as we are somehow living today. You know, I was really thinking, rightly I must say, that this name, this brand, this root, this person would have kept always a certain, let's say, power to myself, and to regenerate ever and ever the things around the brand.
Yeah. So Graham is a very particular brand. So it's a Swiss brand, of course, with that kind of British inspiration, but especially it's a brand like no other brands that produces timepieces that are rare species. And I used to have that motto that I really enjoy to this day. I don't think you still have it, but rare species really defines your timepieces. Of course, you came up with a very interesting timepiece in the late 90s with the chrono with the Foudroyant Royant. It was something quite new back then. But then the Chrono Fighter became your ex libris, and then the Swordfish, and those are the main pillars of your collection today, because you brought back the Swordfish last year. So could you go through the structure of your catalog and the evolution of your collection throughout the years?
So then, you know, I mean, when we created at that time, it was about now 19 years ago exactly, the first Chrono Fighter. We celebrate next year the 20th anniversary of the Chrono Fighter. So then we wanted to do something that was connecting somehow with the Second World War, because it was a device that was used by the bomber pilots and the bomber navigators in the bomber planes. Both sides, I must say, you know, both sides, from the Allied force and from the German Allied force as well, so the Axe force. And then, interestingly, I mean, it was a device that was very logical, because it was using the thumb instead of the index to start and stop a chronographing measure, which was very important, because at that time they were wearing very thick gloves, flying very high to escape from the anti bombers cannons. And then, of course, so this demonstrated also that the thumb was the fastest finger of your 5 fingers. So actually, this is the only independent finger. So then when you start and you stop, this is not a Chrono Fighter actually, but this one here, when you start and you stop with the thumb, then you gain a nice half a second, depending on the person, to 1 second measurement precision, compared with the index start and stopping. This was very interesting, because after having made the very first foudroyant that was measuring an eighth of a second, which was a kind of a real machine, very hard to make and very hard to service, I must admit. So we were probably not always very ready when we started this product. Then we went into the Chronofighter, and it was something different, something never seen before, as a watch, as a wristwatch, and then something that was having a certain meaning for me as a meaning. So it must be meaningful for me to make anything new. And so then the thumb action, start and stop, on the right side of the wrist, because then there's nothing on the wrist directly, it's on your bones, there, on the straight bones, so then you'd never had get hurt. So what's the idea? You know, I thought it was the thing, and obviously it is, because we are now 19 years working with this. This is the main line.
Yeah.
And the second line,
I think it was incredible. Eric, it's incredible when you mentioned that the thumb is the fastest finger on your hand. It makes you think, and then it makes sense, and it's quite useful to use the thumb when you have the watch on your wrist, and it's quick, and of course chronographing times or measuring times depends on the exact moment that you start and stop the measuring, and of course I've been trying the Chronofighter for long now, and I can attest that it is precise. The timing is quite precise and faster than any other chronograph. So, but keep on, please.
And the good, you know, is that many people tried to make a watch movement more precise, more accurate, but they were not taking care of the interaction between man and the chronograph. This is why we were already at that time somehow disruptive, I must say. Changing a little bit the problem from just making a super precise movement. Actually, they were precise because we were already doing COSC certified, but still we were not reaching the precision we wanted. And then hopefully, so then by that, so we could improve a little bit the feeling. But it was also something very, I must say, intuitive. You know, once you have a chronofighter on your wrist, then it's becoming very intuitive. It's nothing that you have to learn. It's very intuitive as a chronographing device. Then the one you love, I know that. So then the swordfish. So the swordfish is a very strange story, because we presented this, I don't remember now the year actually, but it must have been in 83, I believe. 82 or 82 probably. No, sorry, 2002.
2002, I think.
2002. So then it was 2002, delivered 2003, I think. But the first time we presented that one at the Basel Fair, I must say it was a kind of a catastrophe. People told me, well, this is not a watch. This is very hard to read time. This is too big. This is difficult to understand. So all the trade just refused that as a concept. So then I was in very bad shape, because we got started to get a certain price with 500 pieces in production. And I believe during the very successful Basel Fair 83, we got just politely 70 orders. So then I had about 400 more watches to sell, not knowing to who. And then, very surprisingly, so then there's been some, you know, some editors that came and showed, and some journalists that passed by and said, well, that's cool. And they took, we were there already, I believe. And then they showed this in the, you know, in a small kind of picture in the magazines. It was just by the side, or a strange watch made by Graham. And actually the return came from the market. And this is the market that went to the retailers and said, do you have that one by accident? And then the guy said, yeah, well, no, we've seen it in Basel, but we have not ordered. You know, it's difficult to read the time. No, but still, I want it. So please order one. And then the 500 were not enough to end up the year, suddenly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I loved the Chrono Fighter from the beginning. Actually, I like all kinds of watches, from the most classical to the most disruptive. As long as they're well made and well thought of and aesthetically pleasing and mechanically interesting. So the Chrono Fighter was love at first sight, because I'm also I graduated in history and I studied a lot the Second World War period. So I understood the idea behind the advent of the chronograph. And at the beginning, I didn't really. I prefer the Chrono Fighter to the Swordfish, and I didn't feel the urge of having a Swordfish. But one day, I don't think I've ever told you this. I was attending a Parmigiano Fleurier presentation at the SIHH. There was this Italian guy that was doing the presentation from another brand, and he was wearing a Swordfish. So looking from the other side, I thought this watch is fabulous, because people forget to look at watches when from afar, because there's a whole completely perspective, and it really caught my interest and my imagination, and also because we've been close throughout the years. I've visited you several times. The last one in February, or the beginning of March, before the confinement, was the last trip that we made outside Portugal before the lockdown, and yeah, so I felt I had to have one, and I bought one. So I bought this around 2005 or six. Of course, this was the first
I
generation.
hope we made you a decent price, Miguel.
It was the Portuguese distributor. I bought from the Portuguese distributor, and then of course this was the first generation of the Chrono Fighter, and now you have updated the Chrono Fighter, and the evolution of the. I mean, you updated the Swordfish, because I was talking about the Swordfish, of course, and also the evolution of the Chrono Fighter. Can you talk about the evolution, the latest evolution of the Chrono Fighter? Of course, the best, the Chrono Fighter that you've been having several iterations, a lot of limited editions, and regarding the Swordfish, the update is really cool, because it's a perfect update from this timepiece. So the case is much better. Can you go through that evolution?
So, you know, I mean, I'm as a material and metal physicist. So then I was interested in materials always. You know, I was already very much involved in Swatchbook to make new materials, like introduction of ceramics and scratch-proof materials at other brands. And then, of course, I continued, you know, because it's another way. I mean, innovation is not only going through movement. Of course, movement is a key, but let's say you need to have it's a whole, like a car. You need well, it's good that you show the car. But I mean, it's like a car, you know. I mean, you need to explore. You need to go a little bit deeper. You need to find things that are unexpected. And if I take the very last one, you know, I'm very happy with, probably you have seen that on our newsletter. So we are sending now on production and starting a very strange material where you see carbon foils floating like in the air, actually with the matrix. Okay. That is something that we have been developing with our historical carbon maker, manufacturer in Switzerland. That is a pump maker and a hockey stick maker, actually. And so then these guys have made for us a kind of a material that was a dream for us, you know, where you have this kind of carbon, but then you see the transparency, the translucency of the watch. And this is something that I believe is probably something that will send a new trend on the market, because you have seen watches in sapphire, which is fabulous. I love it. But I think I want to go into the sapphire because the price makes the watch transparent, beautiful, but the price is completely out of order, and the quantity you can make per year is just units. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to make quantities. But with these kind of things, we probably can reach, let's say, 200 pieces per year with this kind of new carbon material, which for us is already important. It's about around 8% of our production, so which is a lot. And if we can do that, so this is a new way of imposing a certain style, which always been happening with Graham. You know, we tried always to be just a little bit ahead of the others. There's no need to be changing the world, you know, so that's not our job. But in terms of using materials and combining designs and movement and functions, we tried always to be slightly ahead. And when things move well, like for example, a super light concept on the Chronofighter, where we have since now about 12 years already, a watch that is altogether being with the bracelet in rubber, weighing less than 100 grams. So then we have been consistently successful with that watch because we were changing the rule in doing a super light thing at a price that was somehow reasonable for the Swiss-made product. So this is what I like, you know, to keep a certain eye on the pricing, a certain eye on the innovation, a kind of a slight disruption just to be a step ahead of the others. And this is where we find our energy. So that's why, I mean, and this is where I connect myself with George, with Mr. George Graham himself, because this is exactly the way he worked on it.
Yeah, George Graham was considered one of the fathers of the chronograph. Actually, I just put up a picture that I took at that session that we did in the south of Lisbon, 100 kilometers south of Lisbon. So you've been launching really interesting iterations in bronze. So can you talk to us a little bit about the bronze? Not only the Swordfish, but also the Chronofighter.
I have the two here.
Beautiful.
I have the two here. Yeah. So well, I think the bronze actually is a kind of an alloy that is a mix of bronze and aluminum. Actually, it's not a real bronze. That will be copper and tin. So then we were going more in the direction of aluminum-based bronze.
A more controlled bronze.
It's a kind of let's say more stiff and probably a little bit less less sensitive to corrosion than the regular bronze. That's come very dark very quickly. And so this kind of alloy was, I think we were not the very first using it. I must admit that one. We were studying, but we found another project that will come later, which took a lot of energy. So then we caught up actually with that material because we were already on the way of doing. So then it was very quick for us to accelerate the thing that was in the drawer. And so then we accelerated the project and we came already about 18 months ago with the first production, which was a super success because the watch is, you know, it's not gold, it's not steel, it's I don't know. I mean, the Swordfish looks a little bit like Jules Verne environment.
Exactly.
Strange. And this one looks like a military device, you know. The Chronofighter bronze looks more like a military device. Yeah. So that's why I think it was just a simple thing for us, a simple iteration that was considered by the market as a serious one, but for me it's probably just a logic, simple iteration. So then we have some other things like this, where we mix gold and carbon. I don't show it too long because it's a secret project, but just to show you, we are working on other things where actually, you know, despite our smaller volume, so we can, as we are independent, as we are, let's say, doing what we want and what the market needs at the speed we need for it. So then we are, you know, just exploring different ways. And sometimes it happens that we work only on the design. You know, this happened, you know, during the COVID-19, you know, story. I mean, we have been all stressed because of the close down of everything. So how can we do something, you know, that will be exciting the market? Well, how can we keep a certain life? And thanks God, we have a huge pipeline of innovation, of creativity, of ideas. So we said, okay, let's start then March, first week or second week, I don't remember, first week of March, every week we make a new design. And we keep on Chrono Fighter, and then we will come with some other things after summer vacation. So then we were coming every week with a new model, every week. And we call this one a week, a watch. And so that's been very funny because we were, you know, as we needed to have not less than 10 for the 10 weeks. We are making now a sum up this week. Today is a sum up coming. So we decided, you know, to grab everything that was in the pipeline just to make sure that we had one every week. And the last one was the most crazy one, where we put this kind of things, a small gold ingot on the dial, and we named the watch, you know, break the glass in case of emergency. So then you have a gold coin, a gold small ingot, and then we allow the customer, if he needs one day to break the glass, we give the hammer to break it, break the glass, grab the gold, sell it if needed, return the watch to gold, and we will replace the dial with no gold, of course, and the pistol at our cost.
That's incredible.
We are very much excited to see many watches coming, but only 50 limited. And I think in 1 week we have got already, I believe, about 40 reservations. So then it's almost done. So then this is typically confinement strategy. So easy, going into ideas that no one has and making things, you know, that the people have, you know, bring some joy, some fun, some happiness in the time where, I mean, the times are hard for everyone, you know, whatever you are, entrepreneur or worker, you know, so we have people coming from France to Switzerland because we have also French workers in our borderline, La Chaux-de-Fonds place. They need about 2 hours just to go through the custom clearing every day on one way and the other way. So they just to come and help us to make some watches. They spend 3 to 4 hours in custom clearing. This is the situation now. And we work with 2 shifts, not to have everyone on the same time, so that to reduce the danger. But this being said, when we have this, the return we received from the market was so fantastic that everybody's motivated. It worked in the company. So I believe I made this for my customers, but probably I also did this for ourselves.
Yeah. What I always liked about your company and yourself was you're always there to be different. And of course, I've been saying this a lot in my live sessions with various guests or every guest, because in the past 10 years, 12 years, we've been looking at a tyranny of round timepieces that are very classical, and you've always there, even throughout that period, there to be different and to challenge convention and be disruptive. And I think that's all that Graham is all about. That picture is a nice picture that I took, a wrist shot. It's very impressive. This dial is beautiful, this dial.
Thank you.
Of course, there's that story that your Italian retailer, you once told me that the Italian market is some sort of a test. If it works there, it works anywhere. And they gave it the nickname of Grenade because it's such imposing. There's a lot of character. Also, the swordfish has a lot of character. One thing that I also would like to highlight is you've been doing incredible straps. I'm a strapaholic. These straps are fabulous. The denim strap, these straps are fabulous. The leather straps with the oil, the distressed leather, that's fabulous. So, I mean, as a journalist, I have to be the devil's advocate and challenge and try to criticize when I have to in a positive way. But I have to say that I'm always pleased with the novelties that you come up with, and it's really interesting. And above all, your timepieces are very charismatic. Can you say that the timepiece is charismatic, Eric?
Well, you must say it. It's very hard for me to declare such a statement. But what I try at least is to make them different
Yeah.
and, you know, a little bit recognizable. I mean, I like the watches we're doing here to be clearly understood as something different. And this, when you were mentioning, you know, these times where old classic was ruling the watch industry, especially the Swiss watch
Yeah.
industry, very classic was a do. So then we have got hard times too. I mean, it's not been easy for me to come with this kind of strange small machines. You know, I'm not the only one doing that kind of things. You know, but still, I mean, it's been very hard for us to impose that kind of thing. And strangely now, there is kind of a comeback. You know, people are coming back to something. They are really more careful when they invest their money, which is normal in this kind of period. They want to have something more genuine, probably less marketing oriented and more product oriented. And
Yeah.
then we see is that, let's say, make the watch different. You know, there's no need to have a nice collection of 20 tourbillons. Well, fantastic. Congratulations, 20 tourbillons, but they all look the same, whatever the brand name is on. Then you take this tourbillon, Graham, and then you have a super light tourbillon chronograph that we make that is unique in your collection. And so then this is just to show that I like to make this kind of unexpected things, probably because my passion is into the brand. It's just a passion. Is not a job for me. I'm not a CEO at the end. I'm not even an owner. I'm just, you know, here. I'm traveling into the brand, and I'm responsible for the brand life. But then one day, you know, someone else will have to be when I'm no longer there. So then I'm trying to make this travel entertaining for everyone, including myself, and making it a footprint in the watch industry, modestly, at a very small level we have, but then something so different that people, they like, they dislike, but still they remember. That's
Okay.
what I.
Okay, Eric, of course, I think our time is up. I have this old
Yes.
Moyer table chronograph timing our session. We started a little bit later, but we've surpassed our 30-minute slots. We have someone waiting. We cannot make a lady wait, especially
Of
if
course
she's,
not. Sorry
yeah,
for it.
especially if she's Eleanor Picciotto. I was hoping to see you with your legendary Union Jack jackets. You didn't bring wear your jacket, but I got a picture there to show people that legendary jacket. I hope to see you soon. And I've had a message from my good friend Dodi Gisani. She's the editor of L'Orologio, who also wants to have a live session with you. And I have to say
Beautiful.
goodbye now. And we keep in touch as always. Thanks for
Thank you,
staying.
Michael, and thank you for your everlasting support. It's really appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. So we're going
Thank
to move.